It was a Thursday, late morning, the kind where light comes through the kitchen window in sterile slices, too white to feel warm. I was home, working remote that week. She'd left early, some client lunch across town, something about a new vendor she was excited to impress. I didn't think about it. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional click of the dog's nails across the hardwood. I was on my second coffee, sifting through spreadsheets when I noticed the envelope on the kitchen table. At first glance, it looked like junk mail, addressed to her, glossy, probably one of those subscription trial offers. I was halfway to tossing it when I saw the return address, the same bank we used, but a different branch. She hadn't mentioned opening anything new. Maybe a credit card offer, I figured. But I didn't throw it away. I left it on the counter, something about the weight of it, too heavy for an ad. She wasn't the type to be careless with personal mail, and she never let it sit unopened. Later that night, after dinner, she grabbed it absent-mindedly while scrolling her phone. I was rinsing dishes, back to her, pretending not to notice the way her thumb froze mid-scroll, the pause too long to mean nothing. I heard the envelope tear, then silence. She stood still for a beat, then stuffed it into her tote bag with that fake sigh of tiredness she used when she didn't want questions. I didn't ask. I dried my hands. We watched something mindless on Netflix. Her laugh came too late during the funny scenes. The next morning, while she showered, I checked the trash. The envelope wasn't there. I could have let it go. Maybe should have. But something had shifted, small, precise, like a hairline crack in glass. The kind that looks harmless until the pressure finds it. And it did, 2 days later, when I was searching for her car keys. She always left them in the ceramic bowl by the entryway, always, almost ritualistic. But they weren't there. Not on the table, not in her purse. I checked the bedroom, even the laundry room, growing annoyed more than anything. Finally found them in her gym bag, which struck me as odd, because she hadn't been to the gym all week. Or so she'd said. They were wedged in the side pocket, underneath a folded receipt from a boutique wine bar across the city, dated for the previous Tuesday night. A time she'd supposedly been home, curled up on the couch with cramps, wrapped in the blanket her sister gave her for Christmas. I remembered because I'd gone out of my way to make her tea, even paused my gaming session to check on her. She thanked me softly, touched my arm. I thought nothing of it. Now I had that receipt in my hand. A $98 tab for two, split evenly on 2 cards. 2 glasses of Malbec, an appetizer, and what looked like a shared dessert. Tiramisu. She hates tiramisu. That was the moment. Not the receipt itself. Not the dollar amount. Not even the lie. It was that detail, the dessert. A tiny fracture in the lie she forgot to cover. That's what froze me. The fact that she didn't even order something she liked. That she was pretending with someone else. She could lie about where she was. She could fake cramps and wear that blanket like armor. But she ate tiramisu with someone, smiled across the table, maybe let him feed her a bite, and then came home and curled against me like nothing happened. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. I didn't ask a single question. I kissed her that night like normal, and she kissed back without hesitation, the way someone does when they believe they've gotten away with it. I memorized that. The ease of her lips. The way guilt never reached her eyes. That's when I understood what I was dealing with, not a mistake, not a lapse, but someone who had rehearsed betrayal so well it wore her skin like a second layer. Over the next few days, I let her talk. Let her move through the house freely. Let her vent about work, smile during meals, joke about coworkers. I played my part. I nodded, laughed, even brought her a latte on a rainy morning like nothing had shifted. And she believed it. Of course she did. That was her weakness, not the affair, not the lie, but the arrogance to believe I wouldn't notice the crack. But I did. And I wasn't going to fix it. I was going to make it split wide open. Quietly. Precisely. Just like it began. It was subtle at first, like music you don't notice has stopped playing until the silence becomes unbearable. She still kissed me goodbye. Still texted me from work. Still brought home tie on Thursdays. But the warmth had gone brittle. Her affection became mechanical, like she was checking boxes, like she was mimicking a routine she no longer felt but didn't want to rewrite. And I tried, I tried to believe that maybe this was just a rough patch, that maybe work stress or hormones or the subtle erosion of years together was all it was. That people drift sometimes and drift back. But then the distance started speaking louder than her words. She started saying things like, I just need a little more space, and I'm working on boundaries. Things she'd never said before. Not to me. Not about us. But they weren't angry or cold, just delivered with this gentle detachment, like she was narrating a documentary about someone else's relationship. She started waking up early on weekends, said she was meditating. But I'd hear the shower run, then the blow dryer, then silence. Sometimes she'd come back with coffee for herself, none for me. Said she forgot. She never used to forget. Not birthdays. Not errands. Not little inside jokes we built over years. But now she forgot where we ate on our anniversary. Forgot the name of the coworker she told me about just days before. Forgot how I take my coffee twice in a row. She began locking her phone. Not just closing it, actually locking it, putting its screen down on the nightstand like it was a sleeping child she didn't want disturbed. The passwords changed. Her laughter started sounding rehearsed, like something she practiced in the mirror. It would erupt too loudly or too suddenly, especially when she talked to her new mentor from work. Always this mentor. Always vague. Always calling late in the evening while she sat in the other room, whispering about deliverables and emotional intelligence. I watched her carefully. I started tracking the days she claimed she had meetings. They rarely lined up with her calendar when I glanced over her shoulder. Once, she said she had a therapy session, but I noticed her therapist's number was no longer in her recent calls. She said she went to yoga, but came back with no gym bag and her hair still dry. It wasn't just the lies. It was the effortlessness. The confidence in her voice when she said things that didn't match reality. Like she'd rehearsed the script so many times she could deliver it without blinking. There was one evening, I remember it too clearly, where it almost all unraveled. She left her phone unlocked on the couch. Just for a second. Said she was grabbing wine from the kitchen. I looked. I didn't plan to. But it was right there. Open to a message. A chat thread titled only with an emoji. No name. Just a flame. My heart pounded. I tapped it. The screen refreshed. It was empty. Cleared. Nothing to read. No trace. And yet, that flame, it burned in my mind. Who did you need to name only with that? Why hide something by showing so little? She came back with 2 glasses, smiling like everything was fine. I held the glass. I smiled back. And I didn't ask. From that moment on, I stopped being part of the relationship. I became the observer. I let her talk. Let her give updates I didn't believe. She told me she was finding herself again, said she was healing from patterns. Always some vague therapy jargon, like she'd swallowed a self-help book and couldn't stop quoting it. But the healing never included me. I wasn't in her plans. I wasn't part of her growth. I was just the patient, the static backdrop of her little transformation drama. She told her friends we were rebuilding, but I noticed she never invited me out with them anymore. Never asked if I wanted to join her work events. She kept talking about how good it felt to be seen, but never looked at me when she said it. And the nights got colder. We still slept in the same bed, but her back to me felt like a wall. I started staying up later, listening to the soft buzz of her phone lighting up in the dark. She never flinched. Never reached for it immediately. Just let it glow, then dim, over and over, like a lighthouse for someone else. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who the flame was. I didn't follow her or install apps or check GPS logs. I didn't need to. I had something better, her patterns. I watched her long enough to learn them, to know when she lied, when she overcompensated, when she changed her story mid-sentence. I studied her like a man preparing for something final. Because she thought I still loved her. Because she thought I was still trying. Because she thought I hadn't already decided how it would end. It was the planner that did it, not her phone, not some slip of the tongue, not a shadowy figure caught in a selfie background. It was the old-school, leather-bound, monogram planner she kept in the drawer by her side of the bed. She'd always preferred paper for intentionality, she said. Claimed it helped her feel grounded, as if writing her schedule by hand gave her more control over time. She rarely let me near it. Said it was messy, private. I respected that until I stopped being a participant in our marriage and started studying it like an outsider. That day, she left in a rush, kissing me on the cheek, hair still wet, saying she had a strategy meeting followed by a deep dive with leadership. Normal words. Her tone breezy. Her scent faint, different, though I hadn't placed it yet. I waited an hour. Poured coffee. Sat in silence. Then I went to the drawer. It wasn't locked. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she didn't think I'd ever look. I opened it and found the planner, thick with pages and the smell of ink and perfume again, not hers. I flipped to the week. Monday, dinner with Kay, 7 p.m., remind about that story he loves. Tuesday, D's B-Day, text and morning before flight. Wednesday, rooftop drinks, wear red. Nothing about work. Nothing about me. Thursday, The day she said she was restructuring team roles? Blank. But tucked between Friday's notes was a folded receipt from a tailor downtown. A rush order. Men's shirt, tailored to fit. Custom initials, KR. I stared at the letters like they were a code I was supposed to solve. But I didn't need to. I already knew the name. Not because she told me, she never said it out loud. But once, weeks ago, she'd mentioned a client contact named Kieran. Only once. In passing. But I remembered because she smiled when she said it, the way people smile when they think of someone who excites them. The initials. The dinner reminder. The red dress. That wasn't client work. That was a schedule of intimacy. Premeditated. Precise. Designed. And suddenly, everything else clicked into place. The missing gym bag. The locked phone. The fake cramps. The late-night mentorship calls. She built a second life carefully layered, insulated, curated. And she never expected me to find it because I had always played the reliable husband, the unshakable constant. That's when something inside me went still. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shocked. I just disconnected, like a switch flipped, and the emotional circuitry of our relationship powered down for good. She wasn't just cheating. She was managing me like a client, controlling the narrative, curating the illusion, manipulating the optics. And the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was that she'd been so confident I wouldn't notice. That she thought I'd keep orbiting her while she restructured our marriage into a lie that suited her ambitions. That was her mistake. She didn't realize I was already on the edge of detachment, that I'd been watching longer than she knew. And now I had clarity. Not the kind that comes with closure, but the kind that gives you direction. I didn't rage. I made copies. I photographed the receipts. I took photos of the planner pages with timestamps. I checked her drawer history through the smart lock I'd installed last month. Access logs told me when it had last been opened. I backed up our shared cloud drive and started combing through shared emails for inconsistencies. I found her alternate email, hidden under a domain linked to a side project she claimed had died years ago. It hadn't. It was full of love letters. Not poetic, not romantic, strategic. Conversations about money, about moving, about freedom, about exit plans. That's when I realized she wasn't just betraying me physically, she was preparing to discard me. Like a phase. Like an anchor she no longer needed. That's when the role flipped. I stopped being the husband, the man trying to salvage something sacred. I became the architect of her unraveling. And I knew I wouldn't just leave. That would be too easy. No, I'd make her think she still had me. That her performance was flawless. That her lies still worked. I'd give her what she craved, a man too blind to see. And then, when she'd invested everything into her fantasy, when her grip on her shiny new life was tightest, I'd let it all fall apart. Not with rage. Not with warning. But with precision. The same way she did it. The same way she built the lie, one detail at a time. It happened in front of people. That wasn't the plan. I wanted silence, distance, a quiet execution that would leave her wondering how it all fell apart without warning. But she forced it. It was a Saturday. Midday. We were at a friend's housewarming, one of those polished social events she used to love orchestrating. She'd spent the week talking about it, who would be there, how important it was to show up as a unit, all while her phone buzzed behind her back, while she wore that red dress again like it was a charm against guilt. I stood beside her, nodding at acquaintances, sipping a drink I didn't taste, watching her perform. She was electric when she lied, too composed, too graceful. She even reached for my hand, fingers curling around mine like muscle memory, like she hadn't been touching someone else's skin behind closed doors. Then, out of nowhere, she made a comment, loud enough for the group to hear, about how proud she was of our healing journey, how some people give up too soon, but we fought for each other. And that's when it cracked. That's when I looked at her and didn't see my wife. I saw the actress who thought she still had the room under her spell. I set my glass down. Calmly. Deliberately. She glanced at me, a flicker of something, curiosity, maybe caution, but her smile didn't break. I stepped a little closer, enough that the small circle we were in leaned in unconsciously. Tell them, I said, voice steady. Tell them about Kieran. Her face twitched. Just slightly. Tell them how he likes his shirts tailored and his women married. She blinked. What are you talking about? She said, almost laughing. Is this some weird joke? I held her gaze. No joke. Just facts. Like that dinner reservation at Avara. Like the receipt you tucked into your planner next to notes on what story to tell him. Or the email thread about your future plans, the one you forgot to delete. The room went quiet. People shifted. looked at their drinks. She scoffed, the way someone does when they think they still have a thread of control. You're being paranoid. This isn't the place for whatever fantasy you've built in your head. I tilted mine slightly. Then explained the fake therapy appointments. The gym sessions where you didn't even bring a towel. The late-night client calls that don't exist. Tell them how you forgot how I take my coffee after 10 years. Her jaw tightened. She looked around, gauging sympathy, but the crowd had changed. Eyes weren't supportive. They were watching, listening. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't flailing. I was cutting. And she knew it. You're twisting everything, she hissed under her breath. You've always had this control issue, and now you're making me out to be the villain because you feel insecure. That made me laugh. Quietly. Just once. Insecure. I said. I watched you rehearse betrayal like it was part of your morning routine. I watched you build a second life on top of this one, brick by brick, smiling at me the entire time. You weren't just cheating, you were managing me. Like a task. Like a contingency. Her voice rose then, pitched with that edge of desperation she used to win arguments. Because I had to. You weren't present. You stopped seeing me. I needed connection, and I cut her off, not with volume, but with finality. No, you didn't need connection. You needed control. You needed to feel powerful while lying to someone who trusted you. You didn't look for intimacy, you looked for a stage. And now that the curtain's falling, you want to rewrite the script. She stared at me, mouth parted, eyes wet but unblinking. I made a mistake, she whispered finally. I didn't mean to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't think I'd notice. And when I did, you thought I'd still stay quiet. You thought I'd love you through the lie. But I stopped loving the day you ordered tiramisu with someone else and came home to kiss me like nothing happened. Her lips trembled. She looked to the others again, desperate now, seeking some crack of sympathy. But no one moved. One couple walked away slowly. Another woman lowered her eyes. You don't understand. He listened to me. He saw me. Her voice was shaking now. Then go to him, I said. Go explain how you used your husband's loyalty as a smokescreen. Go tell him how strategic you were. How you rehearsed what to say, what to wear, how to lie. Go let him see this version of you. She was unraveling now. Shoulders tight, face flushed, mascara beginning to betray her. Please, she said, barely audible. We can fix this. I'll end it. There's nothing to fix, I said, voice lower now. This isn't broken. It's exposed. And then I stopped. I didn't walk away. I didn't throw my drink. I didn't offer closure or comfort. I just stood there. Watched her fall apart in the very room she used to shine in. Watched her struggle to collect the pieces of a mask that no longer fit her face. That was the final blow. Not what I said, but the fact that I stayed to see the fire consume her and felt nothing at all. At first, she just stood there frozen, like the heat hadn't yet reached her bones. Then the panic started to settle behind her eyes, behind the tight corners of her mouth as the reality of exposure unfurled around her. Her voice came out brittle, sharp. You're overreacting, she said, trying to summon the old tone of control, the one she used when she thought logic could override emotion. This was never about betrayal, it was confusion. Distance. You created that distance. I didn't respond, and the silence only made her press harder, like a drowning woman clawing for the shore. You were never present anymore. You acted like I was part of the furniture. Her voice cracked on that last word, eyes darting around to gauge who might still be listening. They were pretending not to, sipping drinks and avoiding direct eye contact, but everyone heard. She tried again, softer this time. Look, I made mistakes, but we both did. You shut down years ago. You were just there. And I wanted more than that. I looked at her, finally, and answered with a calmness that made her flinch. No, you didn't want more. You wanted worship. You wanted a stage. And when I stopped clapping, you found someone else to play the audience. Her mouth opened like she might argue, but I didn't give her the space. You never asked for connection. You demanded performance. And when I stopped performing the way you liked, you rewrote the script without telling me. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a prop. She stepped closer, her voice rising into a familiar blend of insult and plea. You think you're so perfect? You think standing there with your little revelations makes you righteous? You've never made sacrifices for me. You never really listened either. I didn't blink. I listened every time you lied to my face and smiled after. That was the loudest thing you ever said. Her face twisted, the veneer cracking further. So what now? You leave? You just throw this away like it meant nothing? She snapped, desperation turning her words into darts. You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. I almost laughed then, but didn't. I leaned forward, just slightly, my voice a low blade. Good. I'd never survive being loved like that again. She stepped back like I'd hit her. People were definitely watching now. She could feel it. The pressure of being witnessed, not adored, not envied, but pitted, judged, exposed. Her face crumpled, just a little, but she tried to mask it with indignation. I gave you everything, she said, quieter now, like it was a mantra that might make the last 10 minutes untrue. I held you down when you didn't even know who you were. I tilted my head. No, you held me back while pretending it was support. You gave me just enough approval to stay loyal, just enough intimacy to stay blind, just enough guilt to keep me small. She shook her head, voice trembling. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. You didn't need to know who you were, I said, voice calm as still water. You just needed me to not know who you were. And now that I do, you have nothing left to hide behind. Her hands clenched at her sides. She looked at the floor, then back up at me, eyes glassy. Can't we at least talk about this? Alone? This isn't who we are. I stared at her for a long, steady moment. No, I said. This is exactly who we are. You just never thought you'd have to hear it out loud. She stepped forward again, and I could see it, the unraveling beneath the skin, the mask slipping, the instinct to manipulate fighting with the inability to control the narrative anymore. We can fix this, she whispered, voice breaking now. We've been through worse. We can get through this. No, I said again. You get through things with people you trust. You're not one of those people anymore. And with that, I stopped speaking. Her lips moved, stammered fragments of justifications, soft apologies wrapped in pity for herself, for what she'd lost, for the role she no longer got to play. But I was already gone, even as I stood there, already done giving her an audience. My silence wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't peace. It was the sound of the curtain falling. And she knew it. That's when her voice finally broke. That's when the tears came. That's when she reached for me. Too late, too empty, surrounded by people who had already started to look through her. And I didn't move, didn't flinch. I let her cry, let her plead, let her become the echo of her own destruction. And I watched, because that's what she never expected, to be seen for what she really was, and to be left standing in it, utterly alone. It's been 8 months since that day. I never saw her cry like that before, never saw her lose control, not even when her father died. But now she cries all the time. Not for him, for herself. Her world unraveled with the same precision she once used to construct her double life. Kieran left her 2 weeks after the party. Once her reputation collapsed and her mask was gone, so was he. Turns out he wasn't looking for a partner, just a thrill. Her job followed shortly after. Someone from HR had been at that housewarming, quiet, observant, and just close enough to overhear her performance slip. A few whispers, some quiet digging, and suddenly her strategic growth position wasn't renewed. She reached out to friends next, tried to spin it, claimed I had manipulated the whole thing. But no one bought it. People don't like being used, and it turned out she'd been borrowing sympathy for years. The group chat dried up. Invitations stopped. 2 of her closest friends blocked her after she tried to rope them into her narrative. Even her sister, the one she always leaned on for cleanup duty, stopped answering. And her mother? She called me, not her. Said she was ashamed. Said she'd suspected something wasn't right, but didn't want to interfere. Now the woman who used to light up every room walks through the world like a ghost. Her Instagram is a graveyard, old selfies, motivational quotes, long captions no one likes. She sends messages sometimes. At first, they were angry. You humiliated me, she wrote. You orchestrated that scene. You wanted to ruin me. I didn't reply. Then they turned pitiful. I miss you. I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out. Still, I said nothing. She called one night. Drunk, I think. I let it ring. She left a voicemail, just breathing, sobbing, and one broken sentence. I still love you. Weeks later, she showed up. Outside my new apartment. Different city, different life. She looked like a ghost of herself. Hair tied back, no makeup, oversized coat like she was trying to disappear into herself. I didn't let her in. She asked for 5 minutes. I gave her 3 words. This isn't home. She started crying right there, on the porch, saying things like, we were soulmates. You know me better than anyone. Please, just talk to me. But I didn't see a soulmate. I didn't even see the woman who betrayed me. I saw someone irrelevant. A stranger with my memories in her mouth, trying to weaponize them like she used to. And I realized something in that moment. She didn't miss me. She missed who she was when I loved her. The version of herself reflected through my loyalty, my presence, my devotion. That was her true loss. Not the job, not the man, not the friends, but the mirror I used to be, the one that made her believe she was good, wanted, safe. And now, without it, she's just her. Raw, unfiltered, alone. That's what emotional manipulation does. It feeds off admiration, needs someone else to carry the weight of identity. Once that's gone, they collapse under the weight of their own emptiness. And I moved on. New place, new circle, new calm. I don't date much. Not because of fear, because peace tastes better than performance. She still messages me sometimes. I don't block her, not out of mercy, but because letting her speak into silence is the worst punishment there is. Because the real power isn't revenge, it's indifference. The kind of indifference that comes from knowing exactly what someone is and feeling nothing at all. So yeah, that's how it ended. Not with screams, not with a bang, but with a silence she'll never recover from. Thanks for listening. Let me know where you're watching from and what you would have done if it were your wife.